It looks like you've got good things probably going for you in some respects in your wrongful termination.
That's because he continues to mischaracterize this as him being terminated because of the protective order. The document speaks for itself. He was not terminated because of the protective order. There is a litany of charges in that specificity of charges, and I object to the mischaracterization that that's what he was terminated for.
Thank you.
He was not terminated for the protective order. And I will not allow her to testify.
I don't want to make that decision.
That's one of the things I'm asking about is the investigation. So, again, the question's going to be yes, because Ms. McDermott just answered the question. There were other charges, so there's an investigation, yes. And then the last thing we have is this blog. So
okay, let's get to the last thing then, the blog.
And I will not allow her to characterize any argument that I'm making or my...
Oh, wait a minute, ma'am. I'll be the one to make all these decisions. You're not in charge. Neither are you. So, now, go ahead and get to the blog.
Okay, so there was an investigation prior to the termination. Is that correct?
I can't answer yes or no to that question because we're talking about a review of conduct which relate to the personnel rules for the termination of an employee.
That's true.
Okay, so are you saying that it's confidential? Are you refusing to answer because it's confidential?
Personnel,
It is. It is. At this point in time,
absolutely.
It is confidential as far as this is concerned until they have the hearing. Now, that's a separate matter. We're here, again, on whether or not the TPO should remain in effect.
Okay, so Judge, then all of this goes out. Where this evidence should not be admissible at all if it's confidential.
Well, all except for the blogs. Everything else.
Except for the blogs, and I request my client received a letter on October 5th that Mr. Robin has, or Mr. Duchon has testified to. That letter was to my client. We agree with that information coming in. We have another purpose for that.
Your Honor, the characterization in the request for the hearing for the dissolution of the protective order was that he was terminated on the basis of the protective order. So that was to rebut that assertion. Counsel has repeatedly stated that throughout the hearing, and that's simply not the case. And the Mr. Duchon has the right to present that evidence to reply. In fact,
well, he's going to have a chance he's going to have a chance to say whether or not he was terminated on this TPO when you get to ask when it's your turn.
He's just told you that it's confidential.
That is confidential.
Then I can't properly cross-examine him as the basis of the dismissal. He can't come back and say, oh no, there were other reasons. If I can't cross-examine him, Mr. Robin has stated that you used in the workplace you used the terms goddamn and Jude, and you've admitted that in the litigation. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm subjective to the knowledge of this. She asserted in her opening argument that there was a lawsuit filed by Mr. Robin, and we understand that. So I don't think
But you said no anyway, right?
No, he didn't, Judge.
It was not in his head.
I did not admit to that statement as you phrased it.
Okay, as I phrase it. What statement did you admit to?
Continuing objection, Your Honor, this one question. We understand that he's filed made allegations and that he's filed complaints.
And he's being retaliated against. Now we have two people who have admitted that my client's telling the truth. I think we're about to have a third.
Objection, Your Honor.
No. If this is retaliatory or not, we're going to find out. Now, what context did you use again? You said, well, not in that context.
During the investigation, I said I might have used the word Jude. I don't recall using that. I don't normally speak that way. And I vehemently deny that I would have used the other word. I don't speak that way.
You want to answer the question?
With all the confusion, I'm not sure what the question actually is.
The question was if you've been sending pornography during work hours to this gentleman.
No.
Okay.
Will you, I was asked if you sent those to my client as well as others. I didn't copy it, but I sent it to, discussing, but I will show a copy to,
Well, the thing is, and each be provided.
She said she'll show it to you.
I would say that my name is on this paper and that these have been presented in an order that would lead that, but I don't remember.
you don't remember sending me.
Since they're through with it, since she's through with it.
Is it your testimony, Mr. Canfield, that you did not send, these pictures to, my client? Hide and Watch? Did you send them?
No,
Did you know Lisa was sending that blog?
I did not.
I didn't watch it if she was watching. You weren't watching with Lisa, were you?
If your definition of watching is reading the blog, as many people have,
Request for fulfill, and I'm trying to figure this out.
mm-hmm.
So you say that, he makes references to his coworkers, specifically by personal traits, including me. They say,
Just a moment, please.
back to my question then on the pornography that was not answered. Is it your testimony that you did not send those items in Exhibit C to my client?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to the relevance of that. This is not a hearing about Mr. Canfield's status with the department or his conduct. This is about Mr. Robbins' conduct, his course of conduct in intimidating and harassing.
Well, Ms. Joppy's pointing out that perhaps it was the other way around.
That's correct, Your Honor.
Okay. Did you?
My name is on those. I receive thousands of email a month. I can't recall each and every email that I may receive or send. But if my name is on there and that's an accurate record, then it must be accurate.
So you just sent something on that came to you? Is that basically what you're saying?
That's what would have happened there.
Okay.
But in that scenario, it would have probably been a request to send it.
You're accusing Mr. Robin of requesting you to send him pornography?
I'm saying that possibility exists.
So do you have any proof of that?
No.
And you would have proof of it on your email, correct? That my client requested it?
Your Honor, I'm going to continue with my objection until
Your objection is so noted, ma'am. Are you through with that thing?
I just wanted to answer that question, Your Honor.
Could you rephrase the question, please?
Sit up there.
Oh, sorry, sir.
If my client had requested that you send him pornography, then you would have a record of that, correct? You just said that my client could have requested it. That was probably what happened.
Well, might not be verbal.
Can we quit answering the question for the witness and let the witness answer it?
No, wait a minute, Ms. Joppy. He has already answered.
He didn't answer that question.
He said that.
He said he sent the pornography.
Mr. Robin could have requested it. That's what he said.
That's what he said,
Didn't
and
say
my
how.
question, and that's what I'm asking him. If he has a document saying that was what my client did. If he requested it on email, you would have that request, correct?
I don't know how far back in time the state system stores email. I clean and purge mine as required.
So you sent this through the state system on work time, correct?
What's it say on the documentation you have?
The first one went on Tuesday, January 30th at 8:36 a.m. Is that a work day for you?
What year is that?
2007.
As long as it continues to object, we're getting far afield from the issue before.
I think that he's given you enough information, Ms. Jaffe, on this issue. He's basically stated that he came off his machine, but he doesn't know. He believes it probably was requested. He doesn't know how. Right?
Correct.
Okay. Now, do you have anything, Ms. McDermott, of this witness or not?
I don't understand all this.
Okay. All right. Then you may step down, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Ms. Jaffe?
Have you received pornography in your workplace from Mr. Canfield?
Ask if you had any pornography
That was sent to you.
to you.
Yes.
And Mr. Canfield was sending it to you?
Yes.
Did you request it?
No.
I'm just going to,
Your Honor, I'm done with that topic.
Now, there are 5 phases of the mobbing process itself. Again, and everybody just decides to jump them arbitrarily. There has got to be something that happens. And saying that this is all the person's fault is not. It is not the person's fault that this happens, but something has to trigger it, other than simply the environment which supports it. But phase 1 is a critical incident or conflict. There is some kind of incident or conflict that happens that triggers this. And that's phase 1. Now, if you have a conflict resolution or mediation program, you could say, well, usually if you employ that, you will get together with people and work out the differences between them and come up with a compromise, which means that, a compromise doesn't mean everybody gets what they want. It means that everybody gets something they can live with and so forth. And, conflict resolution mediation should work. In this case, the perpetrator does not want the conflict resolved. The perpetrator or the mobber has a solution. Their resolution is the other person needs to go. Okay? They will pretend possibly. Conflict resolution is very difficult. My co-author, Noah Davenport, is an expert in conflict resolution and mediation, and I asked her when we were doing the book to write a whole chapter on conflict resolution in the workplace mobbing book because she said that it doesn't work. I said that's why we need to write a chapter on it. Why doesn't it work? Okay? So there is a chapter in the mobbing book on that. But there's always a critical incident or conflict of some kind. Now, if you can interrupt that, because a lot of times it won't be seen, and it can be something it doesn't have to be personal. It can be something very impersonal that becomes very personal over time. It can be as simple as somebody gets hired into or promoted into a position and somebody else wanted it, and is very unhappy that they didn't get it. And so consequently they start picking the person over. And instead of offering assistance, they stand out, well, they're so smart, want to figure it out for themselves, and then they will say, well, see what they did on how they got that job. They don't know what they're doing. Now that has nothing to do with the person's credentials. It has nothing to do with their ability to do the job. It has nothing to do with anything about setting a person up, spreading rumors and hearsay. Okay? But phase 2 of the process is when the aggressive acts and psychological assaults begin, where people do not have the information that they need, they may look inconsistent. They may look like their decision-making abilities are flawed because they are forced to make decisions without enough information. They may get an email or a voicemail, some of these inflamed email, or a phone call. Or the person says, well, you have to, it's important that you come to this meeting and you have to be there, and then ignore them. Little aggressive acts and psychological assaults begin from a variety of directions, and it spreads. It could be, as I said, it could be lateral, it could be top-down, and it could be subordinate to manager, or any of them. But eventually, it comes from all directions because people talk and start spreading rumors, and then it starts to mushroom. And, of course, if you're looking for something, you're going to find it. Also, the person's behavior, the target's behavior starts to change because somewhere along the way you realize that you're being held to a different standard than other people. You may feel that you're being set up. A lot of people feel like they're in the twilight zone. They absolutely do. They feel like they're in the twilight zone. It's like, my God, what am I doing? Or you feel like you're in a horror movie that you can't wake up from, or something like that. Now, once management gets involved, which is phase 3 is management involvement, that's when management usually gets involved, where finally somebody comes in and says, boy, this is an issue here. And by the time management gets involved, it's very difficult. You're halfway through the process, and it's very difficult to figure out who is doing what to whom or how it started. That's why I do programs just for leadership on this, because you've got to watch for certain types of things that are happening. So, over time, the person begins to get beaten and worn down. And by phase 4, the victim gets branded as being a difficult employee, or mentally ill, or the person's having personal problems, or the person's having health problems, or the person's having behavior problems, something to blame it upon. Do you notice with some of the workplace violence that happens? First of all, we talked about early on in this, talked a little bit about the suicide rate. And of the people who commit acts of workplace violence, and I mean shooting them up, and I always thought, why would somebody go, the idea of going postal, I thought, why would somebody go in and spray a whole work area with bullets? Why would somebody just go in and start shooting at random? But most of the time, these people commit suicide, too. They go in and they do it, and then they take themselves out. And, by the way, most of those individuals are also male that do that. Okay, there are other forms of workplace violence and so forth. But what happens is that the person their situation is so out of control, they have to finally take some control. Also, during the process, there is so much paranoia that is created. And usually if you see a report, say, well, the person had mental illness problems and had been a difficult employee anyway and this kind of thing. Well, I don't know if it's mobbing, but maybe part of it is. Or the person had psychological problems, or the person had mental illness problems and had for a while and so forth. But were we just at phase 4? Going to phase 5? Good question. Deserves some looking at, because a lot of times in your own situation, if the person didn't start out that way, see, that's what Dr. Lehman found with his research, that these people that were difficult didn't start out that way. They were perfectly fine. When they were hired, they were good, or when they were promoted into the position, they were good people that had not had prior issues. And there was something in the environment that became toxic. that caused this process and the phases to begin. And then phase 5 is expulsion from the workplace. Voluntarily or involuntarily, the person either gets fired, the person resigns, the person goes on disability, or the person moves to gets a different job. Something happens, but that's phase 5. Now, those are the 5 phases of the process itself. Number 1, critical incident or conflict. 2, aggressive acts and psychological assaults. 3, management involvement. 4, branded. Victim is branded as difficult or being mentally ill. And phase 5, expulsion, voluntary or involuntary.